Senate Committee Room, C-311. Did you know live Senate video is now available at youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. Senate Committee Room, C-311. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. Senate Committee Room, C-311. Did you know live Senate video is now available at youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. Senate Committee Room, C-311. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. Senate Committee Room, C-311. Did you know live Senate video is now available at youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. Senate Committee Room, C-311. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. Senate Committee Room, C-311. Did you know live Senate video is now available at youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. Senate Committee Room, C-311. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. Senate Committee Room, C-311. Did you know live Senate video is now available at youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. Senate Committee Room, C-311. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia.
Call the roll.
Senator Favola,
Here.
Senator Suderline,
Yes.
Senator Bagby,
Present.
Senator Aird, Senator Durant. You have a quorum, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay, colleagues, we're going to go through our agenda very diligently. I have a request that we carry over Senate Bill 1203. The request is from Senator Head. May I have a motion to just carry it over for a week?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay, that bill's carried over. Is Senator Rouse here? There was a request that,
He's championing.
yeah, he was going to come quickly. He's not here. Okay. But I do see Senator Reeves. Senator Reeves, would you like to present?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I have Senate Bill 1408.
8, Department of Health Waterworks mandatory reporting.
Madam Chair, I have to apologize first. I'm going to have an amendment in the nature of a substitute that I need to get before the committee.
Do you have the substitute?
If we could just, you mean the one that's submitted now, right?
Welcome.
Yeah, that's what I have right now. Madam Chair, this has to move the substitute, I guess.
I have a motion to adopt the substitute.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Madam Chair, the substitute before you from the original bill has gone through a lot of changes, but let me tell you why I'm in front of the subcommittee today. Earlier this summer, my county experienced a water stoppage where we didn't have water for, I think it was almost 14 days with no boiling or anything. And what we found out after thorough investigation and spending a lot of the state's money was that we did not have full disclosure from our water authority about 2 pumps that failed, and that the petroleum product that was in the 2 pumps, I think by standard, by code, was mineral oil. The water authority knowingly misled the EPA, DEQ, and those folks that were involved in the emergency response to try to figure that out. The challenge we had there was we spent an enormous amount of resources to get state police, all these other folks, firemen and stuff, to go up and down the Rapidan River to see if there was some form of leaching into the river from maybe a spilled farmer or something else, because we had chemicals in the water that were smelling like WD-40 from a bunch of constituents in Northern Orange. They couldn't figure out what that was. They wound up sending the water sample down to Texas. Texas came back with an analysis of 3 chemicals, and I don't remember what the scientific nomenclature of the chemicals was, but basically it said it was mineral oil. And once we found out it was mineral oil, we knew it was a pump leakage. And then we went back to speak to the folks that were in charge of the water authority, and they admitted that they had 2 failures. And so what this is trying to do is make sure that we don't have that thing happen all over again, and we just experienced something in Richmond very similar. So the substitute before you is not perfect. VACO has come to me with some amendments they would like to have. We've just gotten through kind of working through some of those definitions. We have a few more we need to tweak. But I think everybody's on board now with what we've agreed upon. So I would ask that we move the substitute forward. And I talked to staff already that I'll work with her to get it exactly what we have carved up to get it all put together.
You will take testimony on your bill, and you will have another shot at amending the bill before it appears before Education and Health, but I would expect those would be tweaks, not a whole different.
No, ma'am, it's just having to do with most of the, Madam Chair, the definitions.
Okay.
This really goes into like chemical imbalance or contaminant leak, defining those definitions of what they are, so we make sure one of the VACO, or VACO definitions is a little bit different from what we had. As an example, for critical equipment failure or malfunction, theirs means any failure or malfunction that poses a risk on human health over the short term or of widespread distribution of water service. That differs from what's in the substitute right now. So we want to adopt a few of their definitions, which I think, quite frankly, are more definitive.
Do you want us to adopt that line substitute to the substitute we have before us, or would you rather wait and embed it?
We've got a lot, so I think we ought to wait. I'd rather just, if the committee would be so gracious to move it forward as it is, and with the understanding that we're going to have a bunch of line amendments when we get or a substitute, I would substitute.
Okay, let me just ask if you have speakers who are in favor conceptually of this bill, please come forward and speak for 1 minute or less.
Madam Chair, Chris Pomeroy, representing the Virginia Municipal Drinking Water Association. I've been part of the discussions that Senator Reeves referred to, and I thank him for considering the amendments that we presented. As the bill was introduced, we had very significant concerns. The improvements that were just described, we believe in their final form could make the bill supportable from public water utility standpoint. We're committed to continuing to working with the senator and appreciate his willingness to do so. And that's where we are presently on the bill. Thank you.
Great. Anybody in opposition to the bill? Okay, hearing none. Colleagues, the substitutes before us, and it looks like we might be getting some additional line amendments, but I think conceptually the accountability and transparency aspects of the bill are noteworthy and should be acted on favorably.
Move to report. Second.
Okay, motion has been made to report. And there's a second. Will the clerk call the roll, please?
Senator Favola,
Aye.
Senator Suderline,
Yes.
Senator Bagby, Senator Aird, Senator Durant.
Yes by proxy.
Ayes 5, no 0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
We will make that report to our parent committee. Okay, who's next? Senator Jordan.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee. I believe you may have an amendment in front of you.
What bill are we, you're 1094?
Yes, Senate Bill 1094.
And this is a line amendment?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, may I have a motion to adopt the line amendment to 1094?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay, Senator Jordan, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senate Bill 1094 seeks to add the definition of a psychiatric emergency department into 37.2-809. As we know, 12 to 15% of all ED visits nationwide are mental health related, which equates to about 7 to 8 million a year. Creating the terminology in the code psychiatric emergency department will allow more flexibility for our hospital-based providers in providing adjacency. Currently in the code, psychiatric emergency departments are required to be adjacent to. This will allow more flexibility in the healthcare setting for our hospital systems. And if you have any questions, also that we have a couple phone of friends I think that might be in support. And I understand I've worked some things out with DBHDS, and we've come to an agreement that they're supportive.
Okay, those in support of the bill, please come forward and speak for less than 1 minute.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the subcommittee. My name is Christine Shine. I'm the Director of Behavioral Health Initiatives at the Virginia Hospital and Healthcare Association. We support this bill. This bill amends the language to allow for greater flexibility for health systems to open psychiatric emergency departments. It does this by removing the requirement to be adjacent to the emergency department and allowing for licensure for the Department of Health. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Amy Perrin-Seibert on behalf of the Virginia College of Emergency Physicians. We want to thank the patron and the Hospital Association. The amendment that was just made makes us fine with this bill because it aligns us with the law that we passed last year. Thank you.
It's in there. Anybody in opposition to the bill? All right, seeing none, colleagues, this actually will make the provision of psych beds slightly easier, but we also have, with the line amendment, compliance with our other health requirements. So we've adopted the amendment. The bill's before us.
Second.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded. Will the clerk call the roll, please?
Senator Favola,
Aye.
Senator Suderline,
Yes.
Senator Bagby, Senator Aird, Senator Durant.
Yes by proxy.
Ayes 5, no 0.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the
Thank
subcommittee.
you. We will report that to our parent committee. Is there another Senator Stanley. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's good to see you again.
Good to see you, always.
We miss you in ag right now.
It's reminding me of our days with companion animals. So shall we go to Senate Bill 907?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay.
I believe that's the only bill I have up before you today. Madam Chair, members of the committee, before you today is Senate Bill 907. In summary, 907 seeks to ensure the humane treatment of non-human primates used in state-operated animal testing facilities by mandating their release. That is to say, that once the experimentation and their usefulness has ended, that rather than euthanize these baboons and these monkeys, that we find them refuge in a sanctuary where they can live the rest of their lives peaceably and without fear. This bill defines a certified sanctuary as a facility accredited by the Global Federation of Animal Sanctuaries or certified by the Association of Zoos and Aquariums. What I'm trying to establish here is a framework by which we can transition these non-human primates to sanctuaries, allowing these state agencies to even enter into agreements with certified facilities to implement the process. What we're trying to do here, it reminds me of the time, Madam Chair, when you and I embarked on a long campaign to make sure that we in the Commonwealth of Virginia made a policy decision that when we experimented on animals, not that we stopped that, but that we treated them humanely, and when their time was done, that we tried to find them homes. I am reminded, Madam Chair, of our work together, even with Senator Marsden, with regard to beagles. You may remember long ago, even before in Vigo, and this state helped in 4 bills that I co-sponsored with Senator Jennifer Boysko, that we freed over 5,000 beagles that were being bred for experimentation, that had been experimented on, and found loving homes for all of them. But previous to that, Madam Chair, if you do recall, we had a bill that really explored the nature of those beagles that were being bred and purchased by our agencies here in the state, that were being invasively experimented on, sometimes without anesthetic. One of the bills we passed was to make sure that those anesthetics were applied, that they were not suffering. The second thing is to make sure that when their useful life and experimentation was through, that rather than discard them for the work that they did for humanity, for all of us, that we tried, as we have in Having Man's Best Friend, enjoy some semblance of the life that we think that they deserved, because we're in charge of caring for them. And that bill passed overwhelmingly, which then said for these agencies and these facilities that when they were done experimenting with those beagles, then they would, unless it was unreasonable, because of the injury to the dogs or what have you, that we found them a forever home. And I'm reminded also too of Virginia Tech, which then embarked on a robust adoption program from beagles that they had procured from in Vigo, that were then adopted out and found forever homes and were no longer treated harshly, but rather humanely and with love by the families that adopted them. Baboons are a little different than a dog, of course. However, I am reminded that we're only, a chromosome or 2 away from them. They're intelligent and they're sensitive beings and beasts. And while this bill does not seek to interfere with experimentations that these facilities do, not in any way, it seems to me that what we should do is adopt the same policy that we adopted for these beagles. These baboons are kept in tight quarters and cages, and they, quite frankly, are not given a life outside that they deserve. And when those experiments are done, this bill gives that opportunity for, and it's a shall, not a may, for these facilities to actually contract with sanctuaries to give these baboons refuge in their later lives. And you know, it's kind of like, in my mind, as I think of it as a criminal defense term, when you pay your debt to society, and certainly when these baboons have served humans in the way that they have, oftentimes being experimented on, surgically invasive procedures and the like, that we should also, as human beings, recognize their worth, and their worth to live in peace and tranquility and have a life in these sanctuaries. These sanctuaries are usually quite large. Non-human primates are social.
Senator, we actually do get your point. One of my members had a question. Senator Ayer, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you. Stanley, I think I wanted to know, for the animals that are being experimented on, I understand wanting them to have everything you described once their experimentation is over, but how is it determined whether or not their experimentation can be harmful to where they're going and other animals they will be exposed to, and or their state of stability? I think you used the word whether it was unreasonable or not.
Certainly, Madam Chair, I'd answer the Senator by saying, of course, what we're trying to do also, when we talk about certified sanctuaries, we're engaging those that are accredited by the Global Federation of Animal Sanctuaries and the Association of Zoos and Aquariums. These are professionals that know exactly how and under what circumstances these baboons should find sanctuary, and to the sanctuaries they must go. I'm also reminded, Madam Chair and Senator, that Lisa Jones-Engel, senior science advisor in primate experimentation, who is well known in what she has done, has said that once they're done in scientific research, they found that these baboons and monkeys have thrived, being that they're social animals and also sensitive animals.
Follow-up question, Madam Chair.
Senator Aird, and then I think we need to take public comment, Senator Stanley. Go ahead, Senator Aird.
So the sanctuaries that you have listed here, they will be made aware of the type of experimentation that has occurred to any animal that they're in receipt of?
Madam Chair, to answer the senator, I don't believe my bill addresses that specifically in terms of that, but one would, as it encourages them, the facilities here in Virginia to enter into contracts, that they would be able to work something out like that, that it wouldn't be just a shove and dump, but that all of these considerations would be taken by both sides, and then a proper decision would be made of where, under what circumstances, certainly, and I think one of those factors may be based on what kind of experiments. But again, I don't know what, nothing in this bill requires the facility itself to disclose what kind of experiments were on the animal.
Enter into an agreement. Okay, let's take speakers. Those in favor of this bill, come forward. Please keep your remarks to 1 minute or less.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee. My name is Daphne Nakminovich, and I represent People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals and our nearly 150,000 members and supporters in Virginia. I will keep my comments brief. Princeton and Yale universities have partnered to fund new permanent housing and a care endowment at an accredited sanctuary for non-human primates used in experiments at their school. The only university that uses non-human primates in Virginia still is EVMS/ODU. This bill was inspired by the fact that there were animals there who were euthanized even though sanctuary was offered. And we understand that the EVMS recently ordered 7 baboons, which will cost taxpayers an estimated $82,000. And I only have a few seconds left, but I'll read you the first candidate's entry here. 8 years old, long history, deep laceration, left outer thigh, puncture with underlying muscle laceration, left tricep, 2 muscle bellies of each wound nearly severed. These animals deserve an opportunity. This list goes on and on and on. And this was obtained via public records. Thank you. I hope you will support the bill.
Who's next?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Sharon Adams, representing the Virginia Alliance for Animal Shelters. We're animal advocates for things in addition to dogs and cats. I want to respond to Senator Ayer's question. Sanctuaries are accustomed to assessing damaged animals. That's why they're sanctuaries. So their capacity to ascertain whether it's an appropriate placement or not is something common to them. But I also want to have you think about one last thing. I served on the Task Force for Transparency this summer, and in doing so, I listened to a lot of friends and read research about what the public thinks about medical research on animals. This bill doesn't address that, but the failure to pass this bill suggests a cruelty associated with that, the inability to ensure that those animals that are appropriate, once research is finished, don't have the opportunity to feel sun on their face or grass on their feet is unconscionable to me. And I think you will find it will not win friends for this medical research activity. Thank you.
Thank you. Those in opposition to the bill, please come forward, and you have a minute also.
Madam Chair, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm Alfred Abu Hamid. I'm the Dean at Eastern Virginia Medical School and EVP for Virginia Health Sciences at ODU. Although we share the spirit of the bill in really supporting the humane and ethical treatments of the animals in research, there is significant untoward effects that has not been really highlighted in the bill. These animals are genetically engineered to be in laboratories. They are accustomed to live in a controlled environment where food is provided to them on a regular basis. Their temperature is controlled. Taking the animals out of these environments into a sanctuary can create significant stress to their environments and could actually create more untoward harm than the spirit of the bill is intended to achieve. So this is why we oppose this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in opposition? I have met with both parties, and I heard this bill when I was the chair of Companion Animals. Actually, it was just a few weeks ago. There certainly are some benefits to having animals released to a sanctuary, there's no question. But there are very few sanctuaries, and I'm not sure it is the right place for every animal after there's been a testing, if you will, or an experiment. I'm wondering, Senator Stanley, if you would entertain perhaps language after any animal testing facility operated by a state agency. Do you know that line would be line 19, that no longer has need for non-human primate in its possession. The amendment would be the next 4 words, may at the discretion of its attending veterinarian offer for release. So a veterinarian would be examining the animal and making a determination about whether or not the release to a sanctuary was actually appropriate.
Madam Chair, I'm always, and have been collaborative with you for many years. In fact, your first year. And we worked well together, and we continue to do so. And
Very
I'm
first
honored by
bill,
that.
13 years ago.
That's right. And they looked at us both and they said, one of you is wrong. And
Why not both?
but in this way, shall. I mean, I would prefer, I think, shall with the collaboration of the veterinarian would be more palatable to me. I mean, so long as shall, as long as the veterinarian says it so. And I'm not wordsmithing here, but the may really takes it into a useless permissivity. And this is why I understand the need, but to think that they're bred for this and that they stay in a cage and that they'd rather stay in a cage.
Would you
is just
entertain this? Shall at the
unbelievable.
discretion of the attending veterinarian determine an appropriate post?
I'm sure we can work on that.
Experiment, determine an appropriate post-experiment
I
resting place.
I trust our drafter here, and if that is something that will move this bill along, I think it's important for us to make this statement. But I think it's also important to find sanctuary for these,
Maybe,
for them to have freedom.
okay, so I put the shall back, but I said shall at the discretion of the attending veterinarian determine an appropriate option, which could be including a certified sanctuary.
That's fine, Madam Chair.
Okay.
I'll take that.
Do you have that amendment? Julia, you're a magician. Okay.
I'll move the amendment.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay. So I think this is acceptable. Let me ask the Eastern Medical School. I think that should be acceptable to you.
That is acceptable. So
Okay. All right, the bill's before us as amended. I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
Second, okay. Motion has been made to report the amended bill. Will the clerk call the roll?
Senator Favola,
Aye.
Senator Suderline,
Yes.
Senator Bagby. Yes. Senator Aird.
Aye.
Senator Durant.
Yes by proxy.
Ayes 5, no 0.
Okay, we will report the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, members of the committee.
Good work, Mr. Senator Stanley. Are you, I didn't see another bill from you. Am I wrong?
Another bill?
Okay, so our time together
Another bill, or is it?
comes to a closure. Okay. Senator Bagby?
Oh, no, I don't
Yes.
have another. Okay.
Yes, I just,
Don't scare me like that, Madam Chair.
Senator Pekarsky?
Yeah, mine's a little easy.
I have 1038, is that correct?
That is correct,
Okay,
Madam Chair.
1038. Okay, colleagues, I draw your attention to 1038. Okay, it's a Section 1 bill?
It is.
Okay, go ahead. Well, let's give her a moment to explain her brilliant bill. Go
We're on
ahead.
a roll. I don't know if I want to get ahead of that, Madam Chair. So as you know, because you serve with me on the Joint Commission on Healthcare, this is a Section 1 bill that has come and been recommended by that commission, and it directs the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services to work with state agencies and stakeholders to develop and disseminate best practices, educational training for healthcare providers on conducting telehealth visits for patients with disabilities, including intellectual and developmental disabilities. The bill was, as I said, recommended to us, and it really is looking to extend access to health care to some of our most vulnerable populations who have some unique needs. And this is to help providers have information around best practices and ways to engage to provide those services. So I hope it is the will to report this, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. And I think we also have staff from the commission here if needed.
Oh, it's a great bill, and I just want to point out that patients with disabilities also have challenges traveling to a provider, to be there physically present, and I think it's important that this telehealth initiative really take hold and that we can train providers on how to do telehealth visits for those with disabilities. I too serve on the Joint Commission on Healthcare, so I heard all the background and the studies that led up to this Section 1 bill. All those in favor of this just signify by saying aye. You can stand, or the commission, so you're in favor. Okay, that's Medical Society of Virginia, some other groups. Anybody opposed to this? Okay, hearing none. Now, Senator Aird. Second. You already made the motion and it's been seconded. Okay, will the clerk call the roll?
Senator Favola?
Aye.
Senator Suderline?
Yes.
Senator Backley?
Yes.
Senator Aird? Aye. Senator Durant?
Yes by proxy.
Ayes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Pekarsky. Is Senator Peake here? No? Okay. I also have quite a bit from Senator Hashmi. I am going to ask, yes, I do agree. Senator Aird, you can present your bill. It's very similar to Senator Perry's, and I would like to merge both bills into one, but not lose anything.
Yeah. So Madam Chair, thank you so much. In Senate Bill 1234, it is very similar to Senator Perry's 1090, but there's one significant difference between our bills. It's just that my legislation also includes a provision to ask VDH to begin collecting information related to the justification behind new well permits. And this is just basically because in one of my communities in Charles City and some of my other rural areas, essentially we're finding a disproportionate number of wells are drying up. And so in an effort to try and identify the root cause and provide targeted resources, we really need to begin to start collecting this data in a qualitative way. So this data collection is also included as part of the overall catalyst for the bill, which is basically to enhance the water testing and treatment program with the creation of the Residential Well Water Testing and Treatment Fund.
Right. I will just ask if there are those in favor of Senator Aird's bill 1234, please come forward. Keep your comments to a minute or less. Anybody in opposition to Senator Aird's bill, please come forward. Keep your comments to 1 minute or less. Okay, so Senator Aird, I did read your bill. Would you be amenable to rolling it into Senator Perry's? Our practice is to roll it into the lower number. Would you not? And you both be chief co-patrons? No. Okay.
Sir, if that is the will of the chair.
The will of the chair is to make my committee members happy. We can roll Senator Perry's into yours.
That would be my request.
Okay, all right. So why don't we have Senator Perry's not here, so let's hold on that, okay? We'll come back to this when she comes. Okay.
Just like that.
Senator Peake.
Yes, ma'am, Madam
We've
Chair.
got quite a bit before us. How about 1074?
That's all I've got in front of
That's all
you.
you
Let's
have.
do
It's
it,
pretty
yes.
extensive.
A pretty simple bill. Yes.
Pretty simple, I wouldn't say that, but Okay, colleagues.
This is part of the Youth Protection Act, but my bill is a little bit different than some of the others. I don't know if y'all have heard any others, or there are more this year. You've heard this one, but this one, this bill would prohibit the actual physical, medical removal of healthy body parts for anyone under the age of 21. And we talked about it, it came up yesterday. You can't get a tattoo or a piercing if you're under the age of 18. And yet we're gonna let people remove healthy body parts before the age of 21, and I'd reduce it to 18. If you want to pass it at 18, that'd be fine, but you can't buy a beer before you're 21. You can't buy tobacco before you're 21. You can't buy marijuana or smoke marijuana before you're 21, but you can have your healthy body parts permanently removed. It is a surgical procedure that can't be undone. And I just think we ought to wait till people are at least mature before we allow those types of surgeries. We've talked about it. You've seen it. Everybody's seen it on the news. We have folks who regret having healthy body parts removed, and then there's nothing they can do about it. And when kids are in junior high school, middle school, high school, very tough, difficult times, and might make decisions that they regret when they're 25 or 30. So I don't prohibit drugs or treatment or counseling or anything along those lines, just the actual physical removal of healthy body parts. That's the bill.
Those in favor of this bill, you may come forward. Keep your comments to 1 minute or less. Those in opposition to the bill, you may come forward. Keep your comments to 1 minute or less. This is opposition.
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, my name is Wyatt Rolla on behalf of the ACLU of Virginia. SB 1074 and the nationwide avalanche of attacks on trans people are part of a larger effort to return to rigid rules of how men and women can be in society, further erode civil rights protections, and give the government an ever-increasing role in personal decisions about our bodies and our health care. Trans youth deserve the freedom to be themselves. Every family should have the freedom to love and support their child, transgender or not. Gender-affirming care is a critical part of helping transgender adolescents succeed in school, establish healthy relationships with their friends and family, and live authentically as themselves. While this bill is styled as the Youth Health Protection Act, it would also prohibit state funding for any health plan offering adult care. Transgender adults like myself have been receiving gender-affirming care for decades, and attempts to undermine that treatment are connected to larger efforts to use transgender people as a political wedge issue and expel us from public life and legal protections. I urge this committee to reject the bill.
Good afternoon, Senators. My name is Kalia Harris, and I'm the Executive Director of the Virginia Student Power Network. I'm here today to express our strong opposition to this bill. This bill is a cruel attack, not only on gender-expansive youth, but everyone. We must send a message that this type of hateful legislation will not be tolerated in Virginia. Please kill this bill. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Narissa Rahman with Equality Virginia. We are here in strong opposition to this bill, as we have been the last 3 legislative sessions. It's well established that failure to access necessary gender-affirming care can have dire mental, physical, and emotional health consequences. Doctors, parents, families, and patients should be allowed to have conversations about the care that is best for those individuals, and we should not impede anyone's access to health care in Virginia, and should not criminalize doctors for providing that care. So we urge you to not pass this bill. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I have a motion.
Yep, Senator Ayer.
Move to pass by indefinitely.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there anyone to speak for it?
I asked. Okay, the motion is before us, passed by indefinitely. Will the clerk call the roll?
Senator Favola?
Aye.
Senator Suderline?
No.
Senator Bagby? Senator Aird? Aye. Senator Durant.
No by proxy.
Ayes 3, noes 2.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Well, that will go by. Okay, who else is with us at the moment? I know that Senator Rouse is chairing a committee and Senator Perry is, I did promise Senator Rouse, because he was chairing a committee, that he could come forward. Senator Rouse, is it 875 you'd like us to look at?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you so much for
Okay.
your time and members of the committee. I bring to you a bipartisan bill, and the list is getting bigger each day. This is a issue that seems to have great support on both sides of the aisle, and I'm talking about the Save the Local Pharmacies Act, a bill that seeks to address a growing crisis in our healthcare system, the widening gap in access to pharmacy services, particularly in our rural and underserved communities. Nearly 1 in 5 Virginians live in areas where it's difficult to access a pharmacy. These pharmacy deserts are not just an inconvenience, they're a direct threat to the health and well-being of our citizens. And for those with chronic conditions, the lack of nearby pharmacies means a loss of access to medications, life-saving vaccines, and crucial health consultations. In many parts of Virginia, pharmacies are not just dispensaries, they are the first and often only point of contact for medical care. We know that 71% of Virginia localities, that in 71% of Virginia's localities, there is an insufficient access to primary care providers. That means for a large number of Virginians, their pharmacist is their first line of defense in maintaining their health. This makes the survival of our community pharmacies absolutely essential. But unfortunately, rising drug costs, low reimbursement rates, and the growing influence of PBMs are making it harder for pharmacies to stay open, especially in areas that need them most. Today, we have over 20 counties in Virginia that have either one or no pharmacies at all, and this is a serious issue. When a pharmacy closes, it's not just a business closing its doors. It's a community losing access to care. It's senior citizens losing their trusted pharmacist who knows their medications in and out. It's a single mother unable to get her child's antibiotics without having to drive hours to find a pharmacy that's still open. This is a problem that affects Virginians in every walk of life, but particularly those in rural communities where healthcare options are already limited. This is where SB 875 comes in. It will tackle this problem by realigning Virginia's Medicaid pharmacy benefit under a single state contracted PBM. By cutting out the middleman and increasing transparency, we can reduce the influence of PBMs, ensuring fair pricing for pharmacies, and help keep our community pharmacies open and viable. This shift is not just theoretical, it has worked in other states. In West Virginia, a similar approach saved the state over $54 million annually. Kentucky saved $282 million from 2021 to 2023. And here in Virginia, we estimate that this bill could save us at least $39 million each year, funds that can be reinvested into improving health care for all Virginians. But the final savings are just one part of the story. The real goal here is to ensure that Virginians, whether they live in cities or the most remote part of our state, can access the affordable, high-quality care they deserve. By preserving local pharmacies, we are safeguarding a critical part of our healthcare system. These pharmacies provide not only medications, but vital services like vaccination, health consultation, and wellness checks, all without the need for an appointment. In closing, I want to emphasize that this bill is not just about keeping a business open, it's about keeping Virginia healthy. That is the bill before you, Madam Chair.
All those in favor of this bill, please come forward. You have 1 minute.
Did you hear? Here you are.
Oh, I'm supposed to go third.
Oh, you're supposed to go third.
Okay, fine. How could I cut in front of Dr. Peoples? How? You're a rock star. All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Jeremy Counts. Counts Family Pharmacy, Blacksburg, Virginia. Also, Pharmacists United for Truth and Transparency. Thank you all for listening to me. Thank you for introducing this bill. The payer industry is going to pull out a lot of metrics to say that this won't work. Beware jargon. It usually hides ignorance and carries little knowledge. The real world shows us a completely different story. Just look at states like Ohio and Kentucky saving tens of millions a year. They will say there is no time, but this bill will allow 6 months for DMAS to transition. West Virginia did it in 6 weeks. They will say we need to wait and see, but there's more time. Pharmacies are being decimated right now. PBMs are pocketing Medicaid dispensing fees meant for pharmacies as we close our doors due to under-reimbursement across the board. We had 50 community pharmacy closures in Virginia last year, according to Board of Pharmacy data I obtained. Pharmacy deserts are everywhere. Public access to healthcare is on the decline. We must have transparency, we must save public access to healthcare, and we must move to a single PBM and Medicaid. Thank you.
Well, we're very interested in your comments, but if the previous speaker has made your point, you can just say you align yourself with the points previously made. We would like to know who you are, though, and whoever you're representing.
My name is Dr. Anna Peoples. I own Peoples Pharmacy in a medically underserved community in Norfolk, Virginia. And everything Senator Ross said, in addition to what I would like to add is, I have been on both sides of the aisle. I have worked in managed care, and I own an independent pharmacy. When I was in managed care, it was about profit, save money, prior authorizations, keep within the budget. Now I'm on the other side, and I see how that all goes together. This is a critical issue. If nothing is done, you will have mostly all independent pharmacies closed by the end of this year. So what that means for my population in a medically underserved community where people don't have 2 dimes to rub together, that cannot afford a $1.30 copay, they cannot afford to catch the bus to go across town to get their prescriptions from Walmart. They would be doing without. I urge you to pass this bill. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Kim Wright, and I'm a pharmacist and pharmacy owner, and I have a pharmacy in Cumberland County, Virginia, which is not only a pharmacy desert, it's a medical desert. We are the only access to healthcare that folks in Cumberland have. We are month to month right now, and this bill is so important to have transparency, to save the Commonwealth money, and to help keep community pharmacies, who we are deeply rooted in our community, from closing, and our community members just will have nowhere to go but 30 minutes away. So I just want to echo what my colleagues have said, and I please appreciate you so much for introducing this bill, and I hope you guys support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Hello, I'm Catherine Carey, pharmacy owner here in Richmond, and we serve a lot of underserved in the developmental disabilities area. And I think that what I had to say, a lot of people have already said. I just would like to add that with the single PBM model, we know that we have seen other states do it effectively in a very short period of time, and it does not take away from the many benefits of having managed care. Managed care remains intact, but we're just able to administer the pharmacy in a more efficient way, and that pharmacists are able to be paid appropriately. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Rena Hicks with Freedom, Virginia. All the above, me too. Please pass this bill. We support it.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Tyler Craddock on behalf of the Virginia Society of Health System Pharmacists. We support the bill.
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, Ralston King on behalf of the Virginia Community Pharmacy Association. We also support the bill. Thank you.
Madam Chair, Jody Roth on behalf of Virginia Association of Chain Drugstores, and we support the bill. I have 2 members here to speak, National Association of Chain Drugstores and my members of public, so I'm going to let them talk.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. My name is Jill McCormick. I'm with the National Association of Chain Drugstores. Just wanted to say that we stand here united with our independent practitioners. There was a time just a few years ago when everyone thought that this would be an independent-only problem. Well, the chains are, as you're reading the paper, the chains are also facing this. As I stand here, we have 33 less stores in Virginia than we did in 2024. I do believe that this model works. I did work with the Ohio legislature as they were putting this together. It fairly reimburses pharmacies. It takes all the practices that you frown on that PBMs do to steer patients and underfund pharmacies out of the system, and it puts the state in control, gives you true transparency. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. So you're here to do cleanup.
Apparently, I'm cleanup. Madam Chair, members of the committee, thank you for listening to our remarks. My name is Tim Robertson. I'm a pharmacist with Publix Pharmacy, about 15 minutes down the road. 2 points I wanted to make in addition to what's been already presented. It's not just a rural pharmacy closings. I'm 15 minutes up the road. I've had 2 pharmacies closed down the street from me in the last year and a half. One was a CVS, one was a Walgreens, unfortunately. So those patients were upheavaled and had to move pharmacies. The other point is it's just an access issue. Sorry, give me one second. It's the first time I've had the pleasure of addressing such an important committee.
Oh, my goodness.
I spent an hour and a half on the phone with a PBM yesterday for one patient to try to get his medication covered, and that's just unacceptable. So that speaks to the whole PBM issue. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. This has caused a little controversy, as you might expect. So for those in opposition to this bill, you may come forward. You have 1 minute each. And I will ask DMAS if they have any comments on this bill. Go ahead.
Thank you, members of the committee. Madam Chair, I'm Heidi Dix from the Virginia Association of Health Plans. We represent the 5 managed care organizations that serve the Medicaid enrollees in Virginia. They each operate with a contract with a PBM. We do oppose this bill. What I'm hearing from the independent pharmacists and from others and from those who have come up to testify is that this is an urgent problem. This bill will take a long time to implement. So that's the first thing. We have also looked at some of the numbers from other states, and we have done our own study here in Virginia. We think it will be about $17 million in administrative costs to implement this change. And any change to the rebate structure could be upwards of $44 million total. So we have a lot of concerns about this change. We also know that it does have a negative impact on patients if it's not done properly. And so for those reasons, we do oppose the bill.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, Jeff Palmore on behalf of AHIP and Anthem. Some of the states that we've heard about this afternoon, Virginia's already done a lot of cost containment measures and trying to reduce the costs of the savings that we've already realized here in Virginia. So if you compare those other states, you're not going to get the same savings from this program that those other states saw because we've already moved ahead of a lot of them. We also want to point out that probably about 83% of the benefits of this legislation we expect will go to the large chain pharmacies. Only about 17% will go to the small independent pharmacies, just because that's where the people are going. And I also want to point out that for Anthem, in our Medicaid pharmacy network, the number of independent pharmacies has increased over the last several years. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there a representative from DMAS here? Oh, Jeff Lenardi.
Our friend from JCH.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee. Jeff Lenardi, Chief Deputy at DMAS. The administration does oppose the bill. We've had really productive dialogue, I think, frankly, with community independent pharmacists over the last year and a half, including some who are members of the House of Delegates about this issue. There's a cost of dispensing study that DMAS conducted this year. We do it every 5 years, and that drives our fee-for-service dispensing fee reimbursement. I think one of our primary concerns is that the problem that's being articulated, creating really a seismic shift in how Medicaid benefits are delivered to almost 2 million Virginians is not the most direct way of solving that problem. Investing in our managed care delivery system has been a longstanding commitment of the state. It certainly predates the current administration. It really has been a product of the General Assembly and many administrations over about 25 years. 98.5% of our Medicaid members, full benefit Medicaid members, receive services through our managed care organizations. And so pulling the pharmacy benefit out of that is really a substantial change to how that benefit is managed and overseen. I'll note just two quick things and then move on. But line 376 includes a conflict of interest provision that no pharmacy benefit manager that's connected with any current vendor of DMAS is able to bid on the contract. That would put the state at a tremendous competitive disadvantage in going out for bid for a single PBM. And then I will say, just from a purely RFP development, bid, and then implementation perspective, going out for a completely new bid, as is required, would extend this time frame for at least a couple of years. We'd be looking at FY28 before we could move to implementation. So for those reasons, the administration does oppose the bill. I'm happy to answer any additional technical questions.
Thank you. I will ask the patron, would you have a problem striking lines 36 and 37? No entity contracted by the department to act as a state pharmacy benefit shall have a business conflict of interest with any Medicaid provider or vendor. They may be extraordinarily broad. Any Medicaid provider is broad. Do you have a, you can talk to your stakeholder group at that.
Yeah, I would like to do that, but I also would ask if this bill, if the committee saw favorably to have this bill out, that we could amend it in full committee. If that's amenable, appropriate, that would give me enough time to make sure that this amendment does not cause undue harm.
Okay, we can respect that. There may be additional amendments that might be needed. I do agree this is a seismic change. I don't think that's a reason to necessarily not support it. We can add delayed, please consider adding a delayed enactment.
Absolutely.
Or,
can I address the concerns, Madam Chair?
Yes, you may.
One of the things that, yes, this would be a change, but change is needed because this is not working for pharmacies and for the first line of healthcare throughout Virginia. So this would be a change, and change is not a bad thing. One of the supporters and the opposition stated that implementation would take a long time. Well, that remains to be seen. I think the key objective is to make sure that it's done right and it's done correctly. And when done right and done correctly, this has the opportunity to save Virginian over $39 million. But most importantly, this is an issue right now that goes across rural communities and cities throughout our Commonwealth. And that is why this is a strong piece of bipartisan piece of legislation where we have members and more members on both sides of the aisle wanting to sign up and co-patron this piece of legislation.
I'm inclined to move this forward because I think it's worthy of continued conversation.
Absolutely.
But I do believe that some tweaks will be needed. I
Yes,
think I
ma'am.
pointed out the two lines that would certainly are causing trouble. And something tells me an enactment clause might be needed to maybe lay out some implementation steps and what the transition might look like.
I would certainly agree with that,
So if you-
Madam Chair, and I think that's something where the amendments and tweaks, that we'll have those specific amendments and tweaks before the full committee, if it's the wish
All right,
of this
that's-
body.
Speaking to the bill at the appropriate time, Madam Chair.
Senator Aird.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to echo some of the comments you made in sharing that. I think where we referenced by December 31st, 2025, that was where my question was. I do want to see the selection made, but maybe there might be some preliminary steps around getting to that selection that might be important. But ultimately, in terms of speaking to the bill, I want to express my support for this. I had the opportunity to speak to my own independent pharmacists in my district, and I understand exactly how they're being impacted, as many have shared with us today. So in good faith, I'd like to move that we move this bill forward and can see the additional changes in full committee.
May I have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion has been made. Will the clerk call the roll, please?
Senator Favola?
Aye. The expectation will see amendments before the full committee.
Absolutely.
Senator Sugarline? Abstain. Senator Bagby?
Aye by proxy.
Senator Aird?
Aye.
Senator Durant?
Abstain by proxy.
Ayes 3, no 0, 2 abstentions.
Okay, the bill will move forward to the full committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll have those amendments available. Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the committee.
I'm quickly going to take Senator Rollins. Senator Rollins is still here.
I'm here.
Very quick, and then I'm going to go to that.
Okay.
He's got a very, very quick bill, and Senator Perry, yours is a little bit,
Okay.
a little bit more conversation.
All right, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, SB 1019, it's a little happy little Section 1 bill. Basically, it's based on the same thing we did last year, only we add the word existing to it. Whole reason with that is this bill passed out of the Senate. We didn't have a problem here, but there was a conflict between basically the money staffers between the House and the Senate. It didn't get resolved. And so it is with forthrightness that we must hold the Senate position, which is why we have decided to add the word existing so there not be a fiscal impact. So now it says that the Department of Health shall provide information, resources, and education to all food banks located within the Commonwealth regarding existing outreach opportunities for providing assistance to individuals completing an application for the Special Supplemental Nutrition Program for Women, Infants, and Children, WIC.
All those in favor, just wave your hand. Anybody in opposition, I will entertain a motion.
Second.
Okay, will the clerk call the roll, please?
Senator Favola?
Aye.
Senator Sugarline? Yes. Senator Bagby? Senator Aird? Senator Durant?
Yes, by proxy.
Ayes 5, no 0.
Okay, your bill will report to Ed and Health.
60 seconds or less, and your pizza is free. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Now, Senator Perry, thank you so much for your patience. I was looking, your bill is somewhat similar to Senator Aird's bill. And my preference is to end up with one bill with two chief co-patrons, but I don't want anything lost because Senator Aird has a few things you don't have. Go ahead.
Senator Favola, Madam Chairman, if I can, members of the committee, this is a bill that came out of the Water Commission. I don't know if the Madam Chair is familiar with that, but we worked on this for several months. I have a House patron as well, Delegate Campbell, who's carrying this bill. I have the Water Quality Association who's here to testify on behalf of this bill. We worked with a number of stakeholders on the language of this bill,
It's not in conflict with Senator Aird's, that I can tell. Okay, will the staff please explain the changes between Senator Perry's and Senator Aird's?
Madam Chair, there are a few areas that could bring them into conflict with each other. So Senator Perry's, as introduced, amends the same section as Senator Aird's bill, and it also adds the same section as Senator Aird's bill. There are, let me just pull up, here we go. There are a few, so the amendment made to 32.1-169 in both Senator Perry's bill as introduced and Senator Aird's is the same, as I said, Senator Aird's amends 32.1-176.5, which relates to requiring the department to, or requiring any person intending to construct a private well to apply to the department for and receive a permit application that includes an indication as to whether such permit is for new construction of a well or repair or modification, and if such permit is for new construction of a well that will replace an existing well. And that would include an indication as to the reason such existing well will no longer be used. Senator Perry's does not amend that section, so those two are not in conflict with each other, but they are differences. As to the added section,
Madam Chairman, to be totally fair, as I said, this bill came out of the Water Commission after a lot of thoughtfulness and a lot of conversation. So I have hesitancy in amending a Water Commission bill that comes with the authority of the Water Commission. We try not to do that because they voted it out after several different meetings. And again, this is also Delegate Campbell's bill. And so I have hesitancy to be amending that bill without any conversations with the other stakeholders.
Madam Chair, there is the fact that they both add section 32.1-248.5 and establish a program and fund called the Residential Well Water Testing and Treatment Fund. They both define economic need essentially the same way. They both define eligible treatment and filtration systems the same way. They both define fund and program. As introduced, Senator Perry's subsection B, subdivisions 1 and 2 are essentially the same as Senator Aird's subsection B, but it's not divided into subdivisions. And Senator Aird's also includes at line 89 an additional Romanet, which is the lack of available public water alternatives. The only difference in subsection B, aside from that other Romanet about the lack of available public water alternatives, is that Senator Perry's also includes subdivisions 3 and 4, which relate to when a eligible treatment and filtration system needs to be professionally installed, then it should be or must be by a qualified third-party professional, which is actually also the primary definition that differs from Senator Aird's, which is to say that it's simply not included. Senator Aird's does use the term somewhere in here, I believe. And then subsection C is also the same.
Right. Madam Chairman, what I'll say is that we had extensive testimony on this in the Water Commission, and it was voted out on a bipartisan basis as a bipartisan bill. It's carried in the House by Delegate Campbell, who is obviously a Republican. I am not, for purposes of the the record in here. Thank you, I appreciate that.
Go ahead, Senator Perry.
And so I would say that it's my understanding that typically commission bills are the bills that we move forward on and the vehicles that we move forward in. And so that would be my preference, and I think the preference of the commission.
Just for the record, we have amended commission bills. They do have some cachet, but we have amended them and we have combined them.
Madam Chair, if I might.
Senator Aird.
And I don't think my intent is to discredit a commission bill, certainly. I had an opportunity to speak with Delegate Campbell when I expressed to her the concerns of what I was experiencing in my rural community. So that is factual that this bill is based off the bill she did carry last year and some of the recommendations that she offered in terms of a collaborative solution moving forward. I had no idea the Water Commission had taken this up. And so I think my point in saying that is certainly if the Water Commission has recommended this legislation, I intended no harm, but I would love to see the data collection included, because I think that is how we get to an ultimate I think a source of information about why, particularly in my rural areas, we're seeing these wells dry up, these private wells dry up.
So what would happen if Senator Aird's bill merged into yours? Your bill would be the prevailing bill with the addition of the data collection.
And I'm happy to have that conversation, and I apologize, I haven't read Senator Aird's bill. And so I would at least like the opportunity to take a look at it. I talked to my stakeholders.
Why don't do you mind if we carry this over? We're having a meeting next week, and you and Senator Aird can get together.
I don't mind at all. That's perfectly fine.
Okay, Senator Aird, is that fine with you? Okay.
You want me to make a motion?
Sure, that we just pass by for the week.
Both bills.
Thank you.
Right. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Thank you. I appreciate your collaborative effort. Okay, Senator Hashmi, you have quite a few bills before us. 2, 3.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and members of the committee. The first bill I'd like to look at is SB 1105, and that is the right to contraception. Madam Chair, this is essentially I think it is the same bill that we had introduced and successfully passed out of the Senate last year. We also successfully passed it with my colleague and friend, Delegate Sia Price, out of the House. And this is the bill that made it through both chambers. And I believe we had some degree of bipartisan support. In essence, it is protecting the right to contraception contraception. We know that given the Dobbs decision that rolled back Roe v. Wade, we also heard at that point from Supreme Court justices that they were ready to reconsider the constitutional right to contraception. Specifically, they were ready to revisit Griswold, the Supreme Court decision that made the right to contraception for married couples legal here throughout the country. So we've seen many polls nationwide that indicate over 90% of Americans support contraceptive rights, and actually 100. And the reason why we have a crisis is that just in 2022, 195 members of the U.S. House of Representatives actually voted against the right to contraception. So it's not hyperbole to say that access to contraception is in jeopardy in this country, and most specifically access to critical contraception that provides necessary medical care. One thing that we seek to educate and remind everybody about is that medications that do support family planning are also quite necessary medical care and medications that support individuals on a host of medical issues such as endometriosis, polycystic ovary syndrome, and just making life manageable through very heavy menstrual cycles that many, many women experience. So, Madam Chair, this is the legislation that we had successfully passed last year, and I hope that we will be doing the same this year as well.
All those in favor of this bill, you may come forward. Keep your remarks to 1 minute or less, and I will offer the opposition the same opportunity.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Joan Port, League of Women Voters of Virginia. The League strongly supports SB 1105. We believe that contraceptions should be accessible to all. This bill assures individuals the right to obtain and use contraception and protects healthcare providers who may be assisting them. Most importantly, it assures that the Commonwealth and localities cannot interfere with this guaranteed access to contraception. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ray Pickett. I'm the Communications Director for Planned Parenthood Advocates of Virginia, and we encourage you to pass this bill. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Latwyla Mathias from Progress, Virginia. We support the bill, and we thank the patron for bringing it.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee. Ariel McAloon with Fairfax County, and we support the bill.
Good afternoon. My name is Sherilyn Potts, and I have been a resident of Virginia my entire life, and I definitely support this bill and encourage all of you to as well. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tammy Alexander. I've also lived in Virginia my whole life. I'm a resident of Hanover County. I've had doctors prescribe contraceptives to me for medical reasons other than birth control, so I could live a normal life. I definitely support this bill. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Tarina Keene with Repro Rising Virginia, and I support this bill. The right to contraception is fundamental, and birth control has had an overwhelmingly positive impact on society since it became legal in the 1960s, and it has continued to make, the people who become pregnant and have access to birth control thrive. So not only is contraception essential health care, it is an essential right. Please support this bill.
Hello, you all. Kalia Harris with Virginia Student Power Network. And as you can imagine, college-age students having the right to contraception is quite great. And so we proudly support this bill, and we think that our right to health care, especially contraception, is really great. So thank you, Senator Hashmi.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Nicole Lauder at Williams-Mullen, representing the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists. I want to thank the patron for the bill, and we support it. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Gabriela Watson. I'm the Virginia State Policy Advocate with National Latina Institute for Reproductive Justice, and we support this bill. Thank you.
Okay, those in opposition, you may have 1 minute as well.
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, Jeff Caruso with the Virginia Catholic Conference. Just want to present a few of our concerns. First, in the legislation, person is not limited to adults and thus includes minors. Also, the bill's cited definition of healthcare provider includes pharmacists, dentists, optometrists, podiatrists, chiropractors, et cetera. So this bill would therefore allow a minor to bypass a physician and get contraceptives directly from a pharmacist or even from a dentist or an optometrist or a social worker or any other professional listed in the bill's cited definition. Since contraception is defined in the bill to include the use of sterilization procedures, the legislation would even give minors a right to be sterilized, thus undercutting current law on parental consent before a minor can have a surgical procedure. And finally, the legislation would also undermine the religious liberty and conscience rights of hospitals and health clinics. Some faith-based or religiously affiliated hospitals and clinics do not provide sterilizations or emergency contraceptives. Please oppose the bill. Thank you.
Madam Chair, always a privilege and honor to come before you, ma'am. Michael Huffman, Dr. Michael Huffman of the Virginia Assembly of Independent Baptists. We are by and large not in opposition to contraception as a whole. Baptists have different views on that. Our concern about this bill is the openness of the use of contraception of any and all, as the bill says, FDA-approved contraception, including that which is over-the-counter. And some over-the-counter contraception has been proven to have negative effects to the health of women. And so we would encourage the bill to include doctor oversight. I noticed that people mention menstrual irregularities, that contraception is used for that, but under a doctor's care. Endometriosis is used for that, but under a doctor's care. So what the concern is the openness of non-regulated use of it, and also the religious liberty, as was mentioned before. So we oppose this bill on those bases. Thank you very much.
Hi, folks. I'm Olivia Turner, the president of the Virginia Society of Human Life. Madam Chairman, always lovely to talk to you again. Quickly, as you all know, Virginia Society of Human Life does not take a position on contraception of any kind. However, the bill does acknowledge that the contraceptives are for prevention of pregnancy and goes on to suggest that any drug approved by the Federal Drug Administration, FDA, would in fact qualify. Under current circumstances, we would like to see the bill amended to create a path to acknowledge that drugs like mifepristone, whose sole purpose is to end the life of a child who's already started their life, could not be qualified as a contraceptive, because there is a difference. And as a point of reference, at no point in time will VSHL ever advocate for legislation that would interfere with legitimate and appropriate medical care as deemed fit for an individual with any of these drugs. So thank you very much for listening. Please oppose this bill unless amended.
Yeah, Madam Chair, members of the committee, Todd Gacken, we have the Family Foundation. And again, we don't take a position on contraceptive. I associate my comments with the previous speaker to the extent that it violates parental consent and could deal with abortion-causing drugs. We, for those reasons, oppose the bill.
Remarks?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to respond to the issue and the concern around minors. You know, we already have in Virginia Code, we've got laws that address the issue of minors, and Virginia Code says that minors can give informed consent to certain medical and health services. And those are very clearly defined in Virginia Code, and so minors can access already any necessary treatment they can consent to treatment for venereal disease or reportable infectious contagious diseases. They can consent to medical treatment as is necessary around pregnancy issues. And one thing that we've heard is an objection to the fact that this legislation covers the full spectrum of contraceptive care. So those access points are available to minors already. They're defined in code. Minors can consent to birth control and family planning except for sterilization, and that is the exception that's in the Virginia Code. So we have a great deal of definition already around what minors are able to do. As to the fact of over-the-counter, they're over-the-counter. you can purchase those without doctor prescription. That's the whole point of over-the-counter medication. So thank you, Madam Chair.
I move to report the bill.
Okay, and I will second that motion. Will,
She can speak to the motion real quick.
do you need to speak to the motion? No?
I just want to speak real quick.
You may. Senator Suderline.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Senator Hashmi, who's our full committee chair, for bringing the bill for consideration. As we talked last year, I have great support for contraception access here in Virginia, and I'd like anyone that has concerns for that to be relieved. As I expressed at the time when we first saw the bill, I had the concerns about the way it framed it as an affirmative right with all the legal action, and I thought that was problematic to me, and it would be problematic to a lot of other folks, and I don't think that this is going to get us any closer this year to getting this in the Code of Virginia. So I have significant concerns about that part. So I understand you like the bill as it is, so I won't offer an amendment given where the votes are today. But that is why I'll be voting against report.
Okay, thank you for your comments. I did second the motion. Will the clerk call the roll?
Senator Favola?
Aye.
Senator Suderline?
No.
Senator Bagby? Aye by proxy. Senator Aird? Aye. Senator Durant?
No by proxy.
Ayes 3, noes 2.
Okay. We will recommend that the bill report to the Ed and Health Committee. Okay, Senator Hashmi, do you want to do 1101 at this point?
Thank you, Madam Chair. If we could do SB 1098, that would be great. This is Reproductive and Gender Affirming Healthcare Protection Act. And I believe there's an amendment, just a technical amendment.
Okay.
Okay. So we have a substitute, Madam Chair.
You have a substitute? Okay.
And the substitute is simply the reference to a code section to correct the code section. Am I correct, Julia?
Okay. Bill number's 1098. And there is an amendment in the nature of a substitute, but it is just correcting a code.
It's correcting a cross-reference to section 32.1-381. It should be, the correction is 32.1-382.
Yes. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay, the substitutes before us with the correct code language.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As we all well know, just this afternoon in the Virginia Senate, we passed the right to reproductive health care, and that has just been such a critical next step for us here in Virginia. But as we also know, Virginia is the last of the southern states to protect safe and legal access to abortion, and there has been many other states around the country that have done a significant amount of damage to the access opportunities for their citizens to have access to safe and legal abortion. While states are able to do that within their own confines now as a result of the Dobbs decision, what we are facing is a crisis of healthcare access to critical concerns that so many individuals are facing. And on top of that now, we have states around the country that have restricted access to their own citizens, but that are seeking to file lawsuits and to intimidate healthcare providers as well as patients in states that are refusing to ban or restrict reproductive and gender-affirming healthcare. No one should be afraid to get or to provide legal healthcare in Virginia, and we just can't let other states infringe upon the rights of our own citizens and our own physician community to intimidate or to try to obstruct the access of patients and the medical providers. So this is This legislation is similar to what Senator Favola has carried and others, but there are provisions in this legislation that is a little bit beyond what the other bills are. So this is a shield law that would make sure that Virginia is not complicit in other states' attempts to reduce the opportunities for healthcare services that Virginians support and that they rely on. This bill seeks to restrict Virginia's cooperation with out-of-state prosecutions by prohibiting courts and law enforcement from honoring out-of-state subpoenas, demands for extradition, and arrest warrants, and providing information that would help with criminal investigations into Virginia medical providers who provide lawful, reproductive, and gender-affirming care. So I think one of the critical areas that this bill expands is that aspect of gender-affirming care. We know that as restrictions have placed severe limits in other states, we have many individuals coming to Virginia seeking care here that they are no longer able to receive in their own states. This bill protects what is legal in Virginia, protects those medical providers that provide care that is legal in Virginia, and does not seek to add any other additional conditions on our physician community or medical providers. And so that is the extent of the bill, and I know we have several folks here who would like to speak to it.
And we would like to hear them. I think one other difference between your bill and my bill is you would also protect the telehealth or mailing of mifepristone out of state. As I read this, is that correct?
It actually does not make it legal for Virginia providers to prescribe abortion medication or hormone therapy via telehealth. So we had a correction to the conversation we had earlier. So this bill doesn't make abortion or gender-affirming care legal in other states or prohibit law enforcement in other states from investigating or prosecuting on those telehealth services.
Let me ask you one other question, and I'm glad you did that investigation into that question. If a physician here had a patient relationship with a patient out of state, and there happened to be a abortion ban in that state, could a Virginia physician or healthcare provider prescribe mifepristone if they already have a relationship with that patient?
That is something I think our attorneys can respond to, but specifically any telehealth services, it does not open the door for that.
Say if there was a relationship, not telehealth, but a relationship and a provider
Let's see if
chose
Julia.
to, mail mifepristone.
Madam Chair, Senator Hashmi, I would have to look further into that. I do know that in certain states, and depending on certain federal and state regulations, sometimes prescribing things over mail requires certain telehealth appointments, and there's certain restrictions around out-of-state prescriptions. I'm not sure to the extent to which those apply to Virginia. Like I said, I'll have to look into it and the provisions of the bill, and I will do that now.
That might be a question.
Madam Chair, we have some, our own legal eagles who drafted this legislation. I think they should be able to respond to that question.
Madam Chair, I did have a question from two members. They wondered why this was with Ed and Health, and I think it's important. I would like Ed and Health to hear this committee, to hear this bill, and if we have to re-refer it to courts, then so be it.
And we raised that question with our attorney, our committee attorneys, and Julia, if you want to respond.
Madam Chair, the reason why this bill is first appearing in Senate Ed and Health, other than the fact that it was initially referred to this committee, is because it adds in Title 32.1 of the code, which is the health title, a new chapter, an entire new chapter, and it does touch on, because it is in the health title of the code, certain aspects related to health and healthcare. It adds some definitions, and because it adds an entire chapter to that title, it is appropriate to hear it in this subject matter committee.
judiciary may still, courts may still ask for it, and we may still have to re-refer it, but I'm really glad we're hearing it. Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. For those in favor of the bill, please come forward, and you have 1 minute each.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee. I'm Jerry Greenspan with the ACLU of Virginia, speaking in support of this bill, and I'd like to thank Senator Hashmi for bringing it. Right now, healthcare providers across the country and the patients they serve are being targeted by extremists in other states and now possibly the federal government in an attempt to criminalize those who provide and receive necessary healthcare, even when that healthcare is completely legal in the place where it's provided. It's essential that we protect our providers here at home in order to make sure that Virginians can continue to access the healthcare they need. SB 1098 provides critical protections for both patients and providers from criminal and civil investigations and liability by preventing other states from using Virginia's courts and law enforcement resources to support their attempts to reach here and target our providers. As I'm sure you know, Virginia is the last state in the South without a post-obs restriction or ban on abortion or a ban on gender-affirming care for trans youth. Our providers are and have been regularly treating patients coming here from other states, and neither those providers nor those patients should ever have to fear criminal prosecution simply for providing or receiving care. We ask you to advance the bill. Thank you.
Good evening again, Planned Parenthood Advocates of Virginia. My name is Ray Pickett, and we are here in support of this bill. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Sherilyn Potts. I am a lifelong resident of Virginia, and I speak in support of this bill because no child or provider should ever be afraid to seek or deliver health care. Trans kids deserve to seek the care they need in order to achieve adulthood and beyond, and this bill takes it one step closer to that. Thank you, Senator Hashmi, for introducing this bill.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Latwyla Mathias, Progress Virginia, and we support the bill and we thank the patron. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, my name is Travis Gunn. I'm not affiliated with any organization, but I am a voter and resident of Senate District 12, House District 77. Thank you for your time. I'm appearing to voice my full support of the Senate Bill 1098. The act protects the Commonwealth's sovereign authority to legislate within its own borders, and it also preserves the right of every Virginian to rely on Virginia law while in Virginia regarding abortion and gender-affirming health care. After Dobbs, we've seen other state legislatures proposing legislation that goes beyond their own borders, anti-abortion legislation, whether it's criminalizing abortion-related travel to another state, criminalizing abortion-related conduct occurring in another state, or even criminalizing abortion-related conversations in another state. All these policy proposals and more have been publicized by anti-abortion legislatures, and many of them adopted by other state legislatures. 1098 is a comprehensive protection of this General Assembly's prerogative to set Virginia's policy on abortion. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Dominic Martin, New Virginia Majority, expressing our support for the bill. Just wanting to add that anytime you have some type of policies that add chilling effects, it incentivizes people to go seek more possibly precarious lanes to satisfy their kind of needs. And so for that, we hope that you would support this bill and don't let those bad policies come to Virginia. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Anne. I'm a pediatrician, and I am one of the many lucky medical providers who work with trans and gender diverse youth. The care that I provide goes far beyond gender-affirming medical care. In my practice, I bear witness to experiences across the spectrum: grief and fear, a parent calling me because their child is in the emergency department with thoughts of self-harm after bullying, pure joy and pride, a patient so excited to tell me that they're casted in their first choice role in their school's musical, something they could have never known as reality if they were not supported. Discussions on trans and gender diverse youth are often skewed towards risks such as self-harm, thoughts of suicide, completion of suicide. Yes, we unfortunately see this, but what we don't talk about enough is that trans and gender diverse youth, like all youth, thrive when they are supported. Many of my patients, despite the constant stigma and politicization of their existence, experience the world with joy and spend their time focusing on normal things like making friends and passing their classes. Our job as medical providers is to keep children safe and healthy, and that means helping each and every child thrive as their authentic self. All trans and gender diverse youth should have access to life-saving gender-affirming care, and this care should not depend on their zip code. Any policy that restricts our ability to provide gender-affirming care directly harms an already marginalized youth population who, like all other youth, deserve to pursue happy, fulfilling, and healthy lives. Thank you.
Equality Virginia is here in support of Senate Bill 1098. Virginians are known for valuing our freedom. However, across the country, doctors and patients providing and seeking gender-affirming medical care, as well as reproductive care, have been under relentless attack for trying to exercise their rights to bodily autonomy. Virginia is currently the last state in the South that does not criminalize providers or patients for seeking gender-affirming care. And because of this distinction, transgender and non-binary patients from states like Tennessee and Texas are traveling to our Commonwealth for care. At a time when medical providers are simply looking to do their jobs in Virginia, it is imperative that we protect the rights of medical providers and those seeking care in our state. SB 1098 would prohibit any individual from interfering with another's access to transgender healthcare services and reproductive healthcare services. SB 1098 is designed to protect established best practice medical care that is legal in Virginia and to ensure that our local providers and healthcare infrastructure are not harmed by hostile laws in other states. Medical providers and patients deserve to do their jobs and receive medical treatment without fear of harassment, legal repercussions. It is also well established that failure to access necessary gender-affirming care can have dire mental, physical, and emotional health consequences. For some, this legislation is a matter of life or death. We urge you to support 1098. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Virginia Student Power Network supports this bill. This bill affirms reproductive health care and gender-affirming care are protected health care in Virginia. And y'all, we know that this is so needed, especially at a time where our communities are under relentless attack. Please support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Gabriela Watson with the Latina Institute, Virginia. SB 1098 is a critical piece of legislation that directly impacts our Latina communities in Virginia and throughout the South. Latina communities already face significant barriers to accessing reproductive health care, including abortion and gender-affirming care. According to a recent study, 1 in 4 Latinas of reproductive age live in a state with severe abortion restrictions. For these individuals, the ability to travel to another state for care is not just a matter of choice, it's a matter of survival. Latina communities in Virginia, as well as surrounding states, need to know that if they come to our state, they will be protected from prosecution for simply seeking the care they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Tarina Keene with Reaper Rising, Virginia. I'm here to support the bill. Since the Supreme Court stripped away the right to abortion in this country, 1 in 5 pregnant people now travel outside their own state to access care. And thankfully, abortion is legal and accessible here in the Commonwealth, and we are now a critical access point for abortion care for thousands of our neighbors, including the people of 3 bordering states, Tennessee, Kentucky, and West Virginia, where there is now a total abortion ban. And some states, like Tennessee, are going the extra mile to ensure their citizens do not access the health care they need and have passed laws that have threatened to prosecute and seek extradition of people from other states that assist or provide care for pregnant people from their states, even in states like Virginia where abortion is legal. That is why this bill is so important. Please support this bill.
Madam Chair, Leader of Women Voters of Virginia, we support this bill.
Okay, thank you for those who have taken time to come out and support. We will also hear from those in opposition. Again, you will have 1 minute.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, again, Olivia Turner, President of Virginia Society of Human Life. I am speaking on behalf of women. I believe strongly that bills like this create an environment where women are put in jeopardy. I do not believe that it is appropriate for the Commonwealth of Virginia, nor does our organization legally look at this as a sensible move, considering the fact that it's women who will pay the highest price if providers from Virginia are responsible for damage to their health and well-being, either by perhaps providing drugs or chemicals through the mail, or perhaps even by not being responsible to the laws of the states that they have to be responsible to. All citizens of Virginia can be held accountable to the laws of other states on virtually any other issue, theft, violence, any other crime. For us to suddenly say that abortion is a different class and therefore should be treated separately places the women who obtain abortions in these other states in jeopardy because they may not have the opportunity to pursue the appropriate legal channels as a result of any injury, damage, or concerns to follow up their action to get an abortion. I'm also very concerned that this bill does not recognize our responsibility to the appropriate authority of other states to pass laws in regard to this issue. Please do not pass this bill. It is not helpful to women. It puts us in jeopardy.
I think we'll be able to correct that statement later. Yes, sir.
Madam Chair, Dr. Michael Huffman of Virginia Assembly of Independent Baptists. And the bill speaks about extradition, which means that somebody has broken a law in another state. And I think it's a dangerous precedent when we create laws to protect those who break them. Any person, doctor or just a regular resident who breaks the law of another state should be held accountable for that. We should not create a precedent in the Commonwealth that ignores the sovereignty and the laws of other states. We live in a federated system, which means we operate as a unit, and to ignore the laws of another state would be indeed dangerous. This is also a constitutional problem. Article 4, Section 2, Clause 2 of the United States Constitution calls for when one state demands the extradition of someone else, that state shall deliver that person up by means of extradition. That has been upheld by the Supreme Court in Calder versus Jones in 1984, and the Supreme Court upheld the jurisdiction of that state for extradition. So this creates many problems, moral problems and constitutional problems. So therefore, we do not support this bill. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, Jeff Caruso with the Virginia Catholic Conference. I think first and foremost, this policy would create an elevated and exclusive status for certain providers. To my knowledge, that's unprecedented, and I think it would set a bad and dangerous precedent for our Commonwealth. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to close out?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And as I think we've shared, and as so many of the advocates who have spoken shared, this bill is to protect what is legal in Virginia. It's protecting medical providers who are practicing in Virginia and are delivering the kind of care that is legal in our Commonwealth. And to think that another state, even though they have different laws, can impose their laws on Virginia citizens, Virginian medical providers, patients here in Virginia, that is unacceptable. And so this is what the bill is seeking to do, to protect what is legal here and to ensure that there is no intimidation from other states on those providers who are providing the kind of care that we have already ensured is protected care in our Commonwealth. So that's the essence of the bill, Madam Chair.
I appreciate your efforts. Yes, it does protect our healthcare providers. Julia, did you have an answer to our earlier question?
Madam Chair, yes, I believe I do have an answer to your question. As of now, mifepristone is not one of the scheduled controlled substances for which there are restrictions around prescribing out of state. However, even in the event that it were, so licensed physicians and the other providers, if they have listed in, section 54.1-3303, if they have a bona fide relationship with a patient, even if it were rescheduled, for example, as a Schedule 5 controlled substance, or sorry, Schedule 4 or 5, I think, they could also still prescribe mifepristone to patients out of state if they have that bona fide practitioner-patient pharmacist relationship and abide by certain requirements set forth in that code section. But currently, that is not an issue.
I think that's really important. I really appreciate that clarification, so thank you. I like your bill.
I like it too, which is why I moved to report.
I'll second that. Okay, motion is before us. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Senator Favola?
Aye.
Senator Sutherland?
No.
Senator Bagby?
Aye by proxy.
Senator Aird?
Aye.
Senator Durant?
No by proxy.
Ayes 3, noes 2.
Thank you. Thank you for your work on this. It's been really incredibly important. Senator Hashmi, you have one other bill before the committee.
I've
and I
got
think-
2 more.
2 more.
My apologies to the committee. I know it's dinner time.
No, you're right. You have 2 more. Which one would you like to do?
I would like to do SB 1101, Madam Chair, and this
Yes.
is a bill, this is legislation that we passed on very strong bipartisan support last year. This is breakthrough therapies for veteran suicide prevention. And this is legislation that we looked at last year. It's just slightly modified this year, but the essence of the bill remains the same. We passed it on strong bipartisan support. Last year's bill had the endorsement of our military caucus, and it really is an effort to address crisis points in mental health as well as the trauma that so many of our veterans are struggling with. And just to outline the problem again, you know, veteran suicide sadly remains a crisis with rates that are significantly higher than our civilian population. Nationally, an estimated 17 to 44 veterans die by suicide or by substance-related deaths every day. That's an unacceptable number for us, and we know that the reason why there's such an escalation of suicides among veterans is that our veteran community are disproportionately affected by conditions such as PTSD, treatment-resistant depression, major depressive disorder, or traumatic brain injuries, and thus they're substantially more at risk for suicide. So one thing that, and the reason why I'm so passionate about this legislation is the compelling research that we have seen coming out of Johns Hopkins, as well as research facilities in Texas and in Stanford, that a lot of times the traditional medications that we have for PTSD, depression, and related conditions are either slow-acting or they just fall short, and they don't bring the kind of relief that many of our individuals need. This is groundbreaking research that so many other research facilities have been working with, and what we have seen is in recent years that the FDA, it has led the FDA to grant breakthrough therapy designation to MDMA-assisted therapy for PTSD, as well as for 3 psilocybin-based therapies for our treatment-resistant depression or for major depressive disorders. And what we are hoping to do through this legislation, again, is to establish a dedicated fund for breakthrough therapies for veteran suicide prevention that would support clinical trials, patient access, as well as training for healthcare professionals. I've been working very closely with an organization known as Reason for Hope that works with our veterans communities and that has been working on this legislation and these efforts across the country. And I would really love to have them present their efforts to the committee.
I'm still going to limit the presentation to 2 minutes, and I apologize, we just have a heavy agenda. I don't think there's any opposition to the bill unless I'm misreading the committee. None. Am I misreading the committee?
I'll be an abstain, and Durant will be a yes.
Okay. So we do like the bill, and there's so many aspects to like: setting up the fund, setting up the council, and I really liked your enactment clauses. You get it moving. I just think that this is a really needed idea. Go ahead.
Thank you, Senator Hashmi. Good evening, everyone. Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, my name is Allison Messick. I am the Chief Programs Officer of the Navy SEAL Foundation. I'm also a Marine veteran, and I reside in Chesapeake, Virginia. The Breakthrough Therapies Act, the Breakthrough Therapies for Veterans Suicide Prevention Fund offers an opportunity not only to mitigate suicide risk, as Senator Hashmi mentioned, but also to improve the overall quality of life for our veterans. Research into psychedelic-assisted therapies has shown significant potential for treating mental and brain health conditions. By passing this legislation, Virginia can build the infrastructure needed to support this groundbreaking research. Virginia has consistently shown up for its nearly 700,000 veterans, standing as a leader in providing resources and support. This legislation is an opportunity to build on that legacy and deliver another meaningful advancement in care for those who have sacrificed so much. I have personally witnessed the devastation and the hopelessness that can accompany loss to suicide for a veteran family, and not only loss to suicide, but the hopelessness that they feel when brain and mental health treatments fall so incredibly short. And that is not because of a lack of valiant effort on the side of providers and healthcare. I thank you for your support of this bill, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them. Thank you so much.
The report.
Senator Favola. Senator Sutherland. Senator Bagby. Senator Aird. Senator Durant. Ayes 4, abstentions 1, noes 0.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, my final bill, and I thank everyone who's been waiting patiently through 1064, SB 1064. This is not a dreaded COPN bill, so that itself makes it a unicorn for us today. This is 1064, which would expand expedited review for psychiatric COPN projects. And this bill is coming with from the recommendations of the State Health Services Plan Task Force, which met this past year. We had asked them last year on the legislation that we had taken a look at to work on recommendations regarding projects that are appropriate for expedited review, including a specific request to focus on expanding access to psychiatric care and services. And this was a mandate that came to the task force from a bill that was passed last year. So over this past few months, the State Health Services Plan Task Force developed recommendations for projects that would be appropriate for expedited review. And this bill includes the recommendations relating to psychiatric services. It expands the number of projects that are eligible for expedited COPN review to include the establishment of psychiatric medical care facility, the addition of psychiatric beds, and the relocation of psychiatric beds. This bill also codifies VDH's procedures for those review processes and allows the commissioner to condition a certificate on the acceptance of temporary detention order. So I just want to thank our Medical Society of Virginia and the Virginia Hospital and Healthcare Association who partnered on this legislation and helped to move it forward. As a result of this, the goal is to increase access to critical mental health services by increasing the care and services that our psychiatric patients and community need. And this is just so critical, as we know, that we will hopefully be able to address mental health needs by expanding the number of psychiatric beds that are available to those in crisis.
Thank you. This bill does go beyond psychiatric beds. I just want you to know that the Department of Health has, to my knowledge, never rejected a COPN request for psychiatric beds, but your bill goes beyond this, which is really good. And it's a very needed bill. It seems like you've worked with all the stakeholders. Who's in favor of this bill? You may come forward and speak for 1 minute.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Brent Rawlings, Virginia Hospital Healthcare Association. Thank you, Senator Hashmi, for bringing this forward. Thank you to the other stakeholders and really for being patient. We asked in the Section 1 bill to have the State Health Services Plan Task Force look at this. They did their work. We've taken their work pretty much verbatim and put it into law. And so we're pleased with where it landed and hope you'll approve the measure. Thank you.
Clark Barron with the Medical Society of Virginia. Echo everything Brent said. We support the measure and thanks Senator Hashmi for being a leader on this issue.
Thank you.
Hello, members of the committee. Trevor Monk here with the Psychiatric Society of Virginia as well as the Washington Psychiatric Society Northern Virginia chapter, and we support the bill. Thank you.
Is there anybody in opposition to this bill? Okay, seeing none.
Move to report.
Second. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Senator Favola,
Aye.
Yes.
Senator Bagby, Senator Aird, Senator Durant,
Yes, by proxy.
ayes 5, noes 0.
Senator Hashby, I don't see anything else from you on my agenda. Is that correct?
Mercifully, yes.
Mercifully. Thank you. Okay, Senator Carol Foy is in another meeting, and she's got the proxies of 2 other senators. So I guess we're going to have to move. Well, no, wait. Well, let's do Senator Suderline. Maybe I can yet get her. Would you text her for me? Thank you. Senator Suderline, please present your bill.
All right, I've got. Thank you,
Senate
Madam
Bill
Chair.
1177, and you may present it here or at the dais, or at the podium, wherever you want.
I'll stay here
Stay
just
here.
to get,
Okay?
because there's 2 of them. Senate Bill 1177, also certificate of public need in the title, which is always fun. It deals with critical access hospitals have identified discrepancies between state and federal law limits on swing beds, and this creates difficulties for them. The term swing bed does not refer to a specific physical bed or kind of physical beds, but to a particular stage of medical care, also known as transitional care, that allows hospitals, especially those in rural and remote areas, to use their beds for acute and post-acute care as patient needs change. The current state limits swings beds to 10 of the 25 total beds in critical access hospitals, whereas federal law imposes no such specific limit on the number of swing beds. This bill seeks to solve that challenge by creating a calculation of 10 swing bed daily limit as the average over a hospital's entire fiscal year. If the fiscal year exceeds 10 swing beds, the hospital has the following fiscal year to reduce the average to below 10. And it further goes through how that will work.
Yeah.
And this bill had a lot of discussion in the off-season, and I hope everyone still likes where they were in December.
It's a good bill. Okay. Those in favor of this bill, please come forward, and you have 1 minute.
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, Brent Rawlings, Virginia Hospital and Healthcare Association, and thank you, Senator Suderline, for bringing this measure forward at our request. Critical access hospitals in our membership have, from time to time, bumped against that 10-bed limit, either under circumstances where they had a patient that they couldn't find a nursing home bed nearby, or where the bed available nearby didn't have the level of care needed. And so we're looking for some flexibility. We heard loud and clear from the Virginia Healthcare Association that they had some concerns with this, and so we worked together to try to put the guardrails in place. I also want to point out there's a sunset on this bill. It will expire in 28, so if we do have issues, we'll rectify it then. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brent. Would anybody else like to speak in favor of this bill? Would anybody wish to oppose this bill? Okay.
Second.
Okay, motion has been made to report the bill. Will the clerk call the roll?
Senator Favola,
Aye.
Senator Suderline,
Yes.
Senator Bagby, Senator Aird, Senator Durant,
Yes, by proxy.
5 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Okay, now I don't see anything. You're done, right?
No, I've got one more, but she just.
Okay, our practice usually is to take non-committee members, but are you ready? Would you like a moment, Senator Carol Foy? I can ask Senator Suderline to continue with his.
No, I think I'm ready. I'm ready.
You're ready?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. All right. All right, thank you, Madam Chairwoman and members of the subcommittee. I have Senate Bill 1186, Donor Human Milk Banks Health Insurance Coverage for Donor Human Milk. Doctors and experts agree that a mother's breast milk is the best source of nutrient for a newborn baby, and the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends breast milk be the sole source of food for all newborns up until 6 months. We know that throughout the nation, there's been a number of lawsuits that has been filed because there's been misrepresentations about cow's milk. Is a viable or good replacement for human breast milk, and we now know that that is not true. And so many moms are not able to breastfeed for a variety of reasons: insufficient qualities, adoption, surrogacy, and other complications. And so what we want to do is make donor human breast milk, especially with fortifiers, available to people who otherwise cannot afford it. For very low birth weight babies in the neonatal intensive care unit, the need for human milk is the highest, but Medicaid does not provide reimbursement. And many of these families intend to breastfeed but cannot. And so the milk banks provide a service that's absolutely needed. So without insurance, donor breast milk can cost up to $3.50 to $5 per ounce. And that's why this bill is needed. Senate Bill 1186 prohibits any person from establishing or operating donor human milk bank without first obtaining a license from the Department of Health. We want to make sure where people get their breast milk is safe if they're getting it from a facility and not friend to friend. The bill directs the department to establish criteria for the licensure of donor human milk banks and to promulgate regulations by July 1st, 2025. That prohibit activities of donor human milk banks that do not meet the licensing standards and requirements. So we would ask that this bill be passed. And my apologies, Madam Chairwoman, there is a substitute. Could counsel please read the substitute?
Madam Chair, the substitute. Madam Chair, the substitute only makes a few changes. It's in the form of a substitute because the bill has a corrections impact, which requires a substitute every time, just procedurally. The first change is that it adds a delayed enactment clause of 1 year. So that would make it go into effect July 1st, 2026. Second, in 3 places relating to medical coverage for state employees, Medicaid, and I believe also the last section. So that would be in the substitute lines 280 through 287. In the introduced bill, lines 279 through 288. It strikes some of the specific diagnoses that are enumerated for that coverage, and it strikes the same ones in the same way in all 3 sections relating to insurance coverage. And leaves the diagnosis of a health condition that places the infant at a high risk for the development of necrotizing enterocolitis, bronchopulmonary dysplasia, sepsis, or retinopathy of prematurity, an immunologic deficiency, or the need for an organ or bone marrow transplant, or any other serious congenital or acquired condition for which the use of pasteurized donor human milk is medically necessary and supports the treatment and recovery of the infant as determined by the department. So that's the same change in each of those places. And at line 446 of the introduced bill, and in the substitute in front of you, that would be beginning at lines 447 through 451. It adds, it expands the definition, or I'm sorry, it expands the exception to the definition of donor human milk bank. So essentially, those entities that are excluded from the provisions of the bill and aren't required to follow the regulations, which is basically the parent who expresses the milk and gives it to another person or donates it. And that is all.
You made some changes from the first time we saw this last year, although it did progress to the Finance Committee
That is
last year.
correct.
I think it probably didn't make it out of that.
That is correct.
Did it? And what was the further life of it if it came out of Finance
Madam
last year?
Chair, it was reported out of Senate Ed and Health with 1 substitute. Then Senate Finance passed it or reported it with another substitute that made some more changes that brought it closer to what this, or almost identical to what this bill was as introduced. And then it actually passed the Senate. It was tabled unanimously in House Appropriations.
I knew it was one of the money committees, had to have been.
But not ours.
No. So from the changes I can remember from last year, but I think they're positive changes. The milk has to be pasteurized, and you're also now requiring insurers to pay for the setup of the pasteurization, or am I incorrect in that? The bill requires health insurance corporations to provide health care coverage for the expenses incurred in the provision of the pasteurized donor milk. So that's just providing it. So they need to pay for the coverage if a woman must come and use the bank. Is that correct? I'll ask staff.
Madam Chair, are you referring to, in the substitute lines 274 through, I guess, 276, where it says include inpatient and outpatient coverage for the provision of pasteurized donor human milk and human milk-derived products?
Correct.
I believe that that is just referring to coverage for for the medical care that the provision of the donor human milk would constitute for the child. So not payment for the pasteurization process.
But just payment for the service.
I believe so.
For the provision of the milk. And I agree with that language. As I read it, you are correct. And one other question. I believe an individual actually, don't they need some kind of indication from a physician? Because the Board of Health must establish a regulatory and statutory scheme for the license and regulation. So if in fact we're requiring payment by insurance companies for the provision.
Yeah, this bill, Madam Chairwoman, the breast milk must be obtained from a human breast milk bank that meets the quality guidelines established by the Virginia Department of Health. So what we're not trying to necessarily do is catch up, or this bill isn't applicable to friend, or if there's a group of women who exchange breast milk, this isn't applied to them, Madam Chairwoman.
Got it, okay. And does an individual need to have some kind of directive from a physician to use the bank? And my apologies, this is sort of a long bill, and I think I may have forgotten some of the detail. I read it a few days ago. My fault, not yours.
No worries, Madam Chairwoman. Let me just double check because there's a number of changes and I want to make sure I don't misspeak.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yes, General Counsel, you can, yes, Julia, you can answer.
Madam Chair, if what you're referring to, or if what you're sort of indicating towards in asking that is the fact that a big portion of the bill deals with requiring certain licensure and directing the Board of Health to promulgate regulations around the operation of donor human milk banks. That is because all of Article 9, which is created by the bill, is essentially revolving around the regulation of donor human milk banks for the purposes of the bill. So it doesn't apply to individuals to whom the donor human milk would be prescribed or covered by insurance pursuant to the other provisions of the bill. It establishes the regulations and the licensure requirements for a donor human milk bank to be licensed and permitted to operate in the Commonwealth.
And also, Madam Chairwoman, I have Brian here. I think he can answer that question as well.
Yes, ma'am. Madam Chair, Bryant Thomas with Children's Hospital, the King's Daughters. We currently operate the only not-for-profit milk bank in the Commonwealth. My understanding and the agreements that we've come to over the years is that the first part of the bill will promulgate regulations for to license and regulate our milk bank. That would be required before there would be any reimbursement that any entity might receive for the donor milk. So all the costs that would be associated is going to be on the reimbursement side, and we're going to be responsible for the licensure, regulation, and complying with what those new rules would look like.
For the individual that needs to use the milk from the milk bank, will they need some kind of prescription, directive, something? Will they have to show, how do they show need?
Yes, Madam Chair. In the legislation, it enumerates a few conditions that will satisfy that, but it also will require the medical direction of a physician in order to get a prescription for the donor human milk.
Okay, and it's not necessarily related to the patient's income or other, it's just purely related to access to quality breast milk, is how I'm reading
Yes,
it.
Madam Chair.
Okay.
Our goal with the legislation is to provide more affordable access to donor milk because it's such an expensive treatment for facilities to provide currently. We do believe that reimbursement will help ensuring that there's equitable distribution for that
And
nutrition.
Medicaid patients would be eligible and covered.
Madam Chair, yes.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry, colleagues, I had to go through my numerous questions. I think I understand your bill. Is there anybody here who'd like to speak in favor? You have 1 minute.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Bryant Thomas, CHKD again. We are in favor of the bill for the many reasons that were already stated by the senator. As a reminder, this already went through her two-step assessment, passed the Senate unanimously, and we're hoping that it will pass again this year. So we appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak in favor? Anybody wishing to speak in opposition?
Second.
Okay, a motion has been made. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Senator Favola?
Aye.
Senator Sutherland?
Yes.
Senator Bagby? Senator Aird? Senator Durant?
Yes, by proxy.
Ayes 5, no 0.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Thank you, members of the subcommittee.
Thank you. Okay, so we have one last bill. Senator Suderline.
I will, because I need to get to Peony, where I think I'm also the final.
They acted on my bill without me, according to my staff. So it was a favorable action, I guess.
Senate Bill 1493 clarifies the right to access contraception in the Commonwealth. We heard earlier Senator Hashmi talk about several of the concerns expressed by many Virginians, especially after some Supreme Court, I guess, editorial comments and other opinions. And so this seeks to clarify that it's the policy of the Commonwealth that Griswold is the policy of the Commonwealth. And it also further includes a provision that no one shall be compelled to provide contraceptives in opposition to a religious or conscientious objection. And it's straightforward. I think it's something that we could get, we have a much better chance of getting this through all the way, and it would achieve what we hope to achieve.
This was the governor's amendment to Senator Hashmi's bill last year.
Not exactly, but it's
pretty close.
It's similar.
Similar, and the intent's the same.
The intent is to codify Griswold and make it clear that that's the policy of the Commonwealth.
Speaking to the bill at the appropriate time.
Okay, anybody in favor of this bill, please come forward. You have 1 minute to speak.
Madam Chair, Dr. Michael Huffman, Virginia Assembly of Independent Baptists, stand in support of SB 1493. It's a fundamental right based in our Constitution, not only of the United States, but of the Commonwealth of Virginia, that each person can operate under the dictates of their own religious conscience. And so therefore, for religious reasons, although we confirm the right of contraception, no one should be obliged to have to do it because of religious exemption. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody in opposition? Senator Aird. Oh, somebody is in opposition. Come forward. You have 1 minute. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening. My name is Latoya Mathias, Progress Virginia. We stand opposed to this legislation. We feel like it doesn't go far enough, and we prefer Senator Hashmi's legislation, so therefore we're opposed. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Aird.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Speaking to the bill, just simply put, this committee has already acted on the preferred policy approach that we want to take as it pertains to access to contraception, and as such, I move that we pass by this bill indefinitely.
I will second that motion. With all due respect, I like Senator Hashmi's bill a lot better.
I don't think, just closing out, I think that we've heard from a number of Virginians that are concerned. And I just, on the subject, I really wish that Supreme Court justices wouldn't opine about what else could happen in their opinions, because something I often tell friends if they're fortunate enough to get elected to something, now that you were elected to something, be careful with the things you say. We will never be happy with everything we say when we're in office, but your words carry extra weight then. And saying that perhaps Griswold might be overturned, I don't think that will happen. I hope it doesn't happen, but I want to make it clear that that would not be the situation here in Virginia. And I think our committee should advance the bill. I think it has a much better chance of going the whole way, but I understand a different view. For the same reason I thought the litigious aspect of the earlier bill makes it unlikely. I understand you like that. But that's the same reason I don't think we're going to get to where I think all want to be. I think all 5 of us on the subcommittee want to clarify Griswold. So with that, I oppose the motion and appreciate everyone waiting tonight.
Okay. Motion's before us. Will the clerk call the roll? A motion is in PDI.
Senator Favola? Senator Sutherland?
No.
Senator Bagby? Senator Aird? Senator Durant?
No.
Ayes 3, noes 2.
How's your day?
The bathroom, but
Oh, yeah, I took care of that earlier. I took care of that earlier.
I'm like, oh, no.
I saw there was just going. Yeah.
Turn the streaming on.
Exactly.
Oh, I just said I have to go to the bathroom. I go to sign your beverage bottle. They can hear you on camera. You put that on your Ricky Bobby's. That's it. Don't put that evil on. Would you put that on your Ricky Bobby? I watched Ricky Bobby's. Figure skating one. Yeah, I watched that the other day. It's so funny. It's good stuff. They're so charming.
What happened?
Today. Only Tuesday.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Only Tuesday.
What?
Only Tuesday. That's right.